You get a refinance offer in the mail. The interest rate, it's lower than what you have. So you call, you ask questions, and everything they are telling you seems to line up. Maybe you walk away with a lower payment, or maybe like me, you walked away knowing you are going to own your property sooner and get out of debt faster. Either way, it feels like a win because the new mortgage looks better than what you had before. But let me ask you something. Did anybody ask you what you need the mortgage to do for you? Because if nobody asked the question, you may have gained something on one side without fully understanding what you were giving up on the other side. And I want you to hear both sides of it. A lower interest rate can absolutely be beneficial. Owning your property sooner can absolutely be beneficial. Having a lower monthly payment can absolutely be beneficial, right? But the rate, the term, the payment, and the payment all work together. Change the term and you may change the payment. Change the payment and you may change your monthly cash flow. And depending on what you are trying to accomplish, the trade-off may be perfectly fine. The question is, did you make the trade-off on purpose? That is the part I didn't understand yet. Hindsight is 20/20. Looking back with the knowledge and the framework I have today, I can see that I was asking questions about the mortgage, but I was not asking enough questions about the goal. And that changed the way I look at mortgage decisions today. So let me tell you what happened. My first property I owned was a duplex. When I purchased the duplex, I had a goal. I wanted to reduce what I was paying for housing, create rental income, and begin building wealth through real estate. So for me to live, it had a purpose. I was about 24 when I bought my first house. I wasn't careless with money. I had graduated from college with a degree in accounting. I was learning all about budgeting, getting out of debt, building wealth. So when I received an advertisement about refinancing my mortgage, of course I paid attention. If you have owned a home for a while, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You get a lot of advertisements in the mail talking about lower your rate, refinance, the rate looks great. The numbers catch your attention. And you think, okay, let me look and see what it's all about. So that's what I did, right? Just like anybody else. So I asked a lot of questions before I even got started. I was really trying to figure out if this was really a legit offer. And it really was. They walked me through the numbers. The interest rate was lower. And one of the reasons it was lower was because I was moving from a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage. The interest rate did go down, but I had to shorten the time that I had to pay it back. So naturally, the required monthly payment increased. And when the payment increased, the cash flow I had been receiving from the duplex disappeared. From what I remember, I may have even had to add a few dollars of my own money every month just to make the mortgage payments while I was living there, because at the time I was house hacking. I lived in one part and I rented out the other part. So the refinance did exactly what it was structured to do. It lowered my interest rate, it shortened the amount of time I would be paying on the mortgage, and it moved me towards owning the property sooner. But hindsight is 20/20. With the knowledge and the framework I have now, I understand there was another part of the decision I needed to consider. What I did need that property to do for me in that season. Yes, I wanted to pay off my property, but I was also trying to build wealth, and cash flow was an important part of my plan. By moving to a 15-year, I gained a lower interest rate and a shorter payoff period, but I gave up monthly cash flow the duplex have been creating. That does not mean the refinance was a bad decision. What it means is that that decision came with the trade-off that I didn't fully understand at the time. And this is what I want you to take from this. A lower interest rate can be a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing. A shorter mortgage term can be a good thing. Paying off your home sooner can be a good thing. But good for what? That is the question I wish I would have asked. What are you actually trying to accomplish? Because if the goal is to pay the property off before you retire, a 15-year mortgage may fit beautifully. If your goal is to create monthly cash flow, you may look at that decision differently. If your goal is to purchase another property, you may need to think about what the new payment does to the rest of your numbers. If your goal is simply to reduce the amount of interest you pay over time, that may lead you into another direction. That is what I mean when I say start with the end in mind. You have to know what you are trying to accomplish before you decide which mortgage structure makes sense. Looking back, the question that I was missing was simple. Looking back, the question I did not ask was, Fannie Mae, what do you need this property to do for you right now? Had someone someone asked me that question, cash flow would have been part of my answer. I wanted the property to help support itself. I wanted the rental income to create additional cash flow. I wanted the real estate to become part of how I build wealth. Now, maybe after looking at all the numbers, I still would have chosen the 10-year mortgage. That is truly possible. That's possible. Maybe owning the property sooner would have been the priority, but I would have understood what I was choosing. I would have understood that I was gaining a lower interest rate and a shorter payoff period while giving up some of my cash flow in that season. That is a completely different way to make the decision. You see what I'm saying? The beautiful thing about hindsight is that I cannot go back and change what I knew, but I can use what I went through to help somebody else ask better questions. Now, that is why I teach from my experience, like the duplex. Shortening my time on the mortgage and paying it off sooner also reduce my cash flow. So if I was making that decision today, I would start not with the refinance offer. I would start with my goal. What am I actually trying to accomplish? What is the immediate need? What do I need the property to do for me in this season? Then I would look at the numbers. What happens to the monthly payment? What happens to my cash flow? How much interest am I paying? How long do I plan to keep the property? That's a very important question. What happens to my reserves? Does the new payment affect what I may be able to do next? That's another important question. What does this property need to produce? Then I would ask to see the options. Maybe it's 15 years, right? Maybe the 15-year mortgage is the right answer. Maybe a 30-year mortgage with additional principal payments gives me more flexibility. Maybe another structure makes sense. Maybe the best decision is not to refinance at all. But I do not want one decision handed to me and then make the entire decision from that one decision. I want to understand what is available and what each choice does to the bigger picture. A lot of times we go into different situations with a tunnel mind. This is what I know, this is what I want, but sometimes just really hearing the options can give you a better perspective and help you define your goals. And what I want you to understand about the 30-year versus the 15-year conversation too, there is a trade-off there as well. And I want you to understand something. It is very important that the structure of any mortgage fits your goal. Today, I look at these decisions in order. The goal, the number, the plan, and then the mortgage strategy. First, what are you trying to accomplish? That's the goal. Second, what do you actually want your number to support? Your income, your credit, your equity, your payment, your reserves, your property, your timeline. Once you define that, then we build the plan. Which direction makes sense based on the goal and the number. And then when a mortgage is the right vehicle, we determine how that mortgage should be structured to support the plan. Notice the mortgage comes after the goal, the number, and the plan. Because the mortgage is the tool. A 15-year mortgage is a tool. A 30-year mortgage is the tool. A refinance is a tool. A HELOC is a tool. The tool has to fit what you are trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? That's why I say mortgage is the vehicle and wealth is the destination. This also connects directly to what I teach, the frog method. You start with the first home, the first property, create the foundation. Then we move into reinvest. And I say reinvest, I'm not only talking about equity. It means deciding how to use the resources you already have on purpose. Maybe you reinvest into the property. Maybe you improve it. Maybe you build reserves. Maybe you pay down debt. Maybe you prepare for another purchase. Maybe you restructure the mortgage entirely. Maybe you use equity for a defined purpose. Or maybe you decide that right now, the best thing to do is leave everything exactly where it is. The point is, there should be a reason behind the decision. What are you reinvesting? What are you doing with it? And what result are you trying to create? When I refinanced that duplex, I changed the mortgage without fully connecting the new mortgage structure to the larger purpose of the property. Today, I know to make the connection first. That's the lesson. And this is what separates the way I work from traditional mortgage conversation. I am a money strategist who happens to do mortgages. I help families get clear on the goal. I help them understand the numbers. I help them see how the pieces fit together. Then, when the mortgage is the right vehicle, my team at Optis helps put the right mortgage strategy in place to support the plan. Because I don't just want to know whether you qualify. I want to know what you are trying to accomplish. What does the payment need to look like? What is happening with the property? What are you trying to do with your equity? Are you trying to increase cash flow? Are you trying to reduce debt? Are you preparing for retirement? Those things matter. Getting approved tells you what may be available to you. It does not automatically tell you what is appropriate for your life. So, if you have a refinance offer in front of you right now, I do not want you to throw it away. I don't want you to assume it's a bad offer, and I don't want you to assume it's a good offer simply because the rate is lower. I want you to ask better questions. What am I trying to accomplish? What will happen to my monthly payment? What happens to my cash flow? What happens to the amount of interest I pay? How long do I plan to keep the property? Does this help me prepare for my next move? Does it give me more flexibility or less flexibility? And most importantly, does it support the plan I am actually trying to build? The offer may be completely accurate. The refinance may be a good option. It may be exactly what you need, but possible and appropriate are two different things. The goal is not simply to make a mortgage move. The goal is to make a mortgage decision on purpose. So if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I have a home, I have equity, I am considering refinancing, I have to buy another property, or I just know there has to be more I can do with what I already have. I want you to come to the Frog Method Live. It's going to walk you through how I think about the home you already have, the resources you already have, and how to use those pieces, and how those pieces may help you prepare for your next move. The goal of the class is to help you understand the framework first. Then when you are ready to apply it to your actual income, credit, equity, payment, property, and goals, that is where I come in. I am Fannie Mae West. Mortgage is the vehicle and wealth is the destination. Thank you for staying to the end. See you on the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with another forward thinking person like yourself.